A very warm welcome at our UAE Logistics webinar series today. My name is Stephanie Schachschrabel, and it's an honor to welcome you today at this webinar that is jointly organized by the Embassy and the Consulate of the Kingdom of the Netherlands in the UAE, as well as the BeNeLux Council in Abu Dhabi and the Netherlands Business Council in the UAE. Today, it's our first event. So let me take the opportunity to say to all of you, a happy new year. 2021 will be a year filled with opportunities, business opportunities, and as well it will be the year that the Expo 2020 will take place. We are all excited what this year will bring, and we will be here for you to support you across all business sectors. Well, digitalization in the port logistics is a very important topic, and that's why we're also so glad that so many of you could join us here today. For those who's the first time that are joining us, like you can see in your GoToWebinar control panel, that you can ask questions throughout this webinar. Our moderator, Joe Harrison, will be attending your questions, and if not, you can always direct your questions to the embassy or at the consulate or at our business councils. So let's have a look at the agenda of today. We have a very busy one. We are very happy and honored to welcome our Consul General of the Kingdom of the Netherlands in Dubai, Mr. Hans Sandé, for his keynote speech, followed by an interesting panel discussion moderated by Joe Harrison, who is the Joint Venture Asset Manager at Shell, and also the Vice Chair of the BeNeLux Business Council. Also today, a warm welcome to our panelists. To Mr. Mohammed Abu Hamra from DP World, to Ms. Marloes Pomp and Martijn Thijssen. You will be introduced by our moderator later on today. Without further ado, I would like to hand over to our Consul General of the Kingdom to the Netherlands in Dubai, Mr. Hans Sandé, for his keynote speech. Thank you, Hans, for being with us, and thank you for your opening remarks.
Thanks a lot, dear Stephanie, and of course, thanks a lot to the NBC and the BeNeLux Business Council for hosting this webinar, and also a great shukran and thank you for all the members of the panel. Well, as you can see, I'm not visible due to technical hiccup. This already underlines the importance, if I may say so, of digitalization. But of course, the topic of this afternoon is a far more important one, namely digitalization in port logistics. It's an important and a crucial one, and that will also be shown, I'm sure, during the panel discussion. We are joined here today by an interesting array of speakers that will provide insight into current and future development in this sector. The Netherlands, as you all know, continues to play a very large role in global logistics. Think about, of course, the port of Rotterdam and also the port of Amsterdam. But it's also true for our own Schiphol airport, our national airport. And of course, given our maritime history, it's no surprise that Dutch maritime companies are active worldwide in port construction, indeed also in the UAE and the whole Gulf region. The importance, dear guests, ladies and gentlemen, of logistics, and particularly speed and efficiency, was highlighted once again during the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. Suddenly, we all realized that supply chains were disrupted, and we all can remember the news about potential shortages in certain products. It did, however, and that's important to note, the positive effects of accelerating trends in digitalization as plans were fast-tracked and rolled out. And that is also the topic of this afternoon. Of course, like Stephanie, I would like to wish you not only a very happy new year, and let's indeed hope that this year will be totally different than last one. I'm looking forward to the discussion, and I would like to give the floor to the moderator of this afternoon, Joe Harrison, and wish you all a very, very successful webinar. Thanks a lot once more for the organizers.
Hans, thank you very much for those opening words. Much appreciated, and really clearly heard you underlining the importance of marine logistics there and the improvements that we're going to talk about today. So good afternoon to everybody who's joined us today. Very healthy crowd. That's fantastic. Clearly a very interesting topic. And then in particular, of course, to our three marvelous panelists. Looking forward to a very deep and insightful conversation about the digitalization sort of successes, and then we'll move on to future trends as well, sort of focusing on port logistics. So we've got three panelists who are perfectly placed for that discussion. And if I could ask them to sort of start turning on their cameras now, that would be great. I'll introduce them very briefly by name and then leave them space to introduce themselves and their organizations a little more fully. So we have Mr. Mohammed Abu Hamra, who's a senior manager in information technology with DP World, a company with sort of deep links to the Netherlands. We have Ms. Marloes Pomp, who is the head of international strategy for the Dutch Blockchain and AI Coalition. And then third, we have Mr. Martijn Thijssen, working in digital strategy and transformation, ecosystem and platform play lead at the Port of Rotterdam. So before we start, please listen carefully, pick up the points that are most of interest to you as attendees, and then throw those questions in, please. So we use the chat box to collect questions. Please put your questions in at any point. I'll keep a close eye on that and then bring them into the conversation. So at any point, please add those questions. But without pausing any further, Mr. Mohammed, perhaps you'd like to introduce yourself a little more deeply in your organization. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joe, for the nice introduction, and it's really my pleasure. And I'm so happy to be with you all here, talking about a very interesting subject on digitalization in supply chain and port industry. To introduce myself in general, my name, as you clearly mentioned, is Mohammed Abu Hamra. I am a senior manager in IT DP World UAE region. I take care in general about the digitalization portfolio in UAE region in DP World. It ranges from a normal automation projects to a detailed emerging technology projects such as data analytics, AI, blockchain, IoTs, Internet of Things, and many other technologies. If we talk about DP World, at DP World, we have a heritage to be proud of, growing from a local port operator to a global trade enabler. From our beginning in 1972 at Port Rashid in Dubai, we now have a team of 50,000 people working at 150 operational sites around the world. And we are so proud of this huge multinational community. In fact, our business model has evolved and emerged so much from the early days of just operating port and terminals. And now we are proud to say that we can be an integral part of your supply chain through tailoring and innovative solutions that tackle any challenges the supply chain has and manage the cost in a very efficient way. If we talk about DP World UAE region specifically as a region, we can say that UAE region is the flagship region of the global trade enabler DP World. It's here in Dubai, where the company was born, sustained, developed into a global logistic giant, earning a prestigious place among the top 5 port operators. DP World UAE region is the premier maritime hub to a region of more than 3.5 billion people. And as the region frontline trade enabler, we offer a full suite of solutions to local and international business all over the world and across the region. Our portfolio in UAE region only includes, as you clearly know, Jebel Ali Port. We have Mina Rashid. Mina is a port, but in Arabic. And we have cruise terminals. We have P&O Marinas. We have another port called Mina Al Hamriya. In addition to that, under UAE region, we have 3 main free zones, started by Jebel Ali Free Zone, which is the flagship, Jafza. Then we have a National Industries Park, which is NIP. And the third one is Dubai Auto Zones, which is named as DAZ. In addition to that, we offer an online trade solutions through our online portal and gateway called Dubai Trade. And in addition to that, we offer security solutions through our subsidiaries, World Security. This is in brief about myself, DP World in general, and I dig down into UAE region and its subsidiaries.
Thank you. And Martijn from Rotterdam.
Yeah, thank you, Joe, for the introduction, and Mohammed for your clear introduction. My name is Martijn Thijssen. I'm with the Port of Rotterdam Authority, that is. So that's really the authority in the Port of Rotterdam. A very broad business we have. We develop the port area, we build infrastructure, and I'm with more or less the business side of the company, where I'm responsible for everything that has to do with going into digital infrastructure and how can we connect that to ecosystem platforms and facilitate trade. So it's a very broad topic, very actual topic. I've got a few slides, I think, here to underline a little bit better for the audience to keep track. So if we can move to the next slide, please, then I can explain a little bit of what we do and how we do it. We have the ambition to become a really the smartest port in the world. Well, that's the ambition, but we're moving there. We see that trade is still done the way it has been since the Middle Ages, but digital era really speeds up things. I think COVID has underlined that need, and we cannot no longer do it on our own. Supply chains are becoming supply chain networks where everybody is interconnected all the time. So we need to start having data standards. We need to share data, and on top of that, we can build or the industry can build their own smart solutions for shippers and forwarders and everybody that uses logistics to do their business. For us, that's really a changing role, where we traditionally build infrastructure, quay walls, and provide safe passage for all vessels, and we lease out the land. So we are a landlord model. We don't operate any ships or any terminals or whatsoever. We only lease out the land and provide the infrastructure. We see now that we also need to provide digital infrastructure to the users of the port. Same as a quay wall where a ship can dock, now you need sort of platforms where users of the port can get their data or connect their data. So that's a changing role. We get new customers. It's not only the traditional lessors of the land or the shipper, the shipping companies, but all of a sudden we have platform for shippers or forwarders or individual companies needing information on the whereabouts of their cargo. So it's really a changing role from landlord to a true port manager. And with that also comes, of course, new business model opportunities, which we also need to investigate. So it's a very interesting time for a traditional port authority moving into a port manager while still being a sort of public-private in the Netherlands. So it's interesting times. A little more explanation on that. Next slide, please. Can we switch? I think what we see really is that, yeah, you can click through the different layers, like I already expanded. We are in the physical part, where we now I see the colors switched in the presentation. Doesn't really matter. We see 4 different stages where we move as Port Authority first to individual automation. So that's really digitizing your own core processes. Second part is the port community. So that's everything we do within Rotterdam, the companies in the port. We have RWG here, which is partly jointly operated with DP World. For example, we are in the port community here, setting up systems, automating everything, sharing data. But if we do that only in the port, it's not enough, because we are the gateway to the hinterland in Northwestern Europe. Rotterdam is the biggest port in Europe. So we need to make the connection with the hinterland in terms of modalities, barge, truck, rail, but also in terms of data sharing nowadays. So there we need to set up automation system, data sharing platforms. And in the end, we need to do that all over the world, because shipping industry is global, and there's no use if you ship something from China to Europe, or from the UAE to Europe, that you just put it on a ship, your container, and then all of a sudden it's a black box, and hopefully it appears after a couple of weeks at your destination. So there is a need for information. How can we share that? Who has what? How can we do it on time? And that's everything we work on these 4 different levels. And in the end, it's our ambition to have 1, 2, and 3 really in order for Northwestern Europe, and then make the connection with global connected ports or hubs. If you look at Dubai, if you look at Singapore, Shanghai, Houston, with Shell, where we're working closely together, that's where we can be a connected ports network of sharing data and really facilitating trade. So that's what we do. I think that was my last slide, or the next one sums it up basically, but I've covered it all. So it's really about smart connected ports and supply chains, where we traditionally just build key rules and provide safe passage. We now are building digital infrastructure for ourselves, but for the port community and the world around us that are enabled to connect to the world. And we'll come to a few examples later on.
Okay, thank you. And then Marloes, perhaps you can help us understand what you're doing to sort of enable that dematerialization of the Port of Rotterdam and others.
I will try. My name is Marloes Pomp, and I'm responsible for the international strategy of the Dutch Blockchain Coalition and the National AI Coalition. Next slide. And I will explain a bit how the Blockchain Coalition is organized. In the Netherlands, we have selected several key technologies like artificial intelligence, blockchain, 5G, data sharing, and so on. And for all these key technologies, we have the Dutch government has built a public-private coalition. And the umbrella for all these coalitions is the Dutch Digital Delta. And like I mentioned, for blockchain, there's also a coalition, the Dutch Blockchain Coalition. Next slide. Yes, and this coalition was an initiative from the Ministry of Economic Affairs, but now it's a collaboration between the government, a lot of corporates like the Port of Rotterdam, and a lot of knowledge institutions. And together they've built a working agenda. And next slide. And what the Dutch Blockchain Coalition is doing is they have selected several use cases to work on together at the national level. For example, on digital identities, the electronic bill of lading. It's one of the projects from Martijn. He can explain it later on. The career wallet, it's a wallet for employees to collect their diplomas, for example, and to share it with whoever they want with validated diplomas. We also have a use case for energy. It's an energy platform for different decentralized energy providers. There's also for example, a shared administration for pension providers. There are a lot of use cases. Then we also have the 2tokens community, and they are working on the tokenization roadmap. So the use cases, they started mainly with the decentralized administration, and the 2tokens community, they started, their focus is mainly on the tokenization and the crypto part of blockchain. But of course, in most use cases, they will be combined. And maybe Martijn can also explain how this works for the electronic bill of lading. Then we have a lot of field labs in the country with startup communities. For example, in the city of Amsterdam, there's a big startup community which is specialized in food safety, for example. We will also build a new agenda for SMEs, because we found out that a lot of corporates, they already have a specialized blockchain team in their company, but for SMEs it's still a struggle to figure out how they can use this new technology. We also have a human capital agenda. For example, they have made a free national blockchain course, which is available for everybody who wants to learn more about decentralized technologies. There's also a national research agenda, and we're heavily involved in the European Blockchain Partnership, which is a partnership between the member states in Europe, and they're working together on the European blockchain service infrastructure. And for example, they're also working on self-sovereign identity and the diploma use case. This is a picture with the first projects we started with the first use cases, but we have added some new ones in the last year. Next slide. This was the first blockchain use case which was implemented at the national level. This is the pension administration. In the Netherlands, we have several pension providers, and they all have their own administration. And now they have built on top of their own administration a common administration. So it makes it much easier for employees when they want to switch from one pension provider to another. Yeah, it's much easier and much faster to switch between the different providers in the Netherlands. Next slide. If you want to learn more, it's a black screen, but we have made videos about several use cases, like the electronic bill of lading, and also there's a project between the banks in the Netherlands to share the information about their clients, to know your client information. So if you want to learn more, I can share these videos, and you can also find them on the website of the Dutch Blockchain Coalition. If you want to learn more about the tokenization roadmap, you can find it on the website tokens.org. We've also made a scan about all the standardization initiatives around the world, which is also important for the projects of the electronic bill of lading. Next slide. Next slide, I will skip this one. Yeah, I already mentioned, well, it doesn't matter. I already mentioned we have a lot of blockchain startups in the Netherlands, in different communities. Each year we host the biggest startup hackathon in the Netherlands. And the previous slide showed the website of this hackathon. So I'm sure the slides will be shared so you can find it. On the website of the Dutch Blockchain Coalition, you can find the free course about the national blockchain course. It's also in English, and new studies will be added in the coming months. Next slide. Yes, you can also find a webinar about the future trends of blockchain research. So if you want to learn more about blockchain research in the Netherlands, you can find this webinar. And I think I have a last slide. It's difficult if you can't read. Yes, I mentioned the European blockchain service infrastructure. There's a lab in the Netherlands together with TNO. It's a knowledge institute. And they're working on the identities, the digital identities, which is needed in most blockchain projects, of course. I think this was the last one. Yes, if you want to learn more, I'm more than happy to answer all your questions, and you can find more information at the website of the Dutch Blockchain Coalition.
That's perfect. Yeah, thank you for that very broad and deep introduction. So again, we heard sort of many different examples and areas of interest in the three panelists. So to the attendees, if there's anything in particular you heard there that's of particular interest, please point it out in the chat, and I'll be sure to come back to it. But first, back to Mohammed and Martijn. Could you sort of go a little bit deeper on some specific examples of digitalization innovation that you've recently implemented? So what it was and what the benefits were for your organizations in cost, time, efficiency, or other. Mohammed, perhaps you'd like to take DP World first.
Thank you, Joe. Honestly, Joe, we have been, in DP World, we have been investing in technological advancement since long time. And that really have helped us in during the pandemic of COVID-19. Sorry, yeah. So due to the different versions of that, so I missed the serial number of COVID. So during the pandemic, it really helped us. We are fully aligning our efforts with the UAE 2030 digitalization strategy and Dubai 2021 paperless strategy. The list is long, but to answer your question, let me start with one of the major initiatives that we can that are really promising, and it will be an industry changer if it really happens in the best way that we look for it. It is called autonomous internal trucks. As you know, in any port industry, there is a major component called internal terminal trucks, which takes the containers from quayside to yard side and vice versa. So in addition to that, it takes it from a terminal to a terminal. So it plays a major role in any port and terminal operations. We have a huge fleet here in Jabal Ali, and we are aiming to equip those trucks with the latest artificial intelligence hardware and softwares to enable them to run autonomously. When we say autonomously, we don't mean just moving from point A to point B. It is much more than that. We mean to enable them to interact clearly with the whole port and terminal ecosystems. We talk about the terminal operating system, containers, gate systems, humans, and external trucks, and many other objects. So if it happens, and we are working heavily with many partners and colleagues, and we feel that this will be a breakthrough in the industry. Another one is through our online trade portal, which is Dubai Trade, which is our single window platform for cross-border trade. We just introduced the electronic delivery order. It's a sophisticated tool that allows all the supply chain stakeholders to handle a complex import processes with only a click of a mouse. In less than a year since its launch, EDO has recorded over 52,000 transactions valued at 120 million dirham. In addition to that, and also in Dubai Trade, which is our trade portal, we launched a platform called Zadi. Zadi is an Arabic name, means my food. Zadi is an integrated food import platform that facilitates the import and re-exports of food shipments through all Dubai ports. On the other hand, we shed the lights and we started several use cases in 5G and how it will revolutionize the port industry. And we saw a promising result that will enable the business and take it to the next level. I think those are 4 or 5 initiatives that I shed the light on them. That's it from my side, Joe.
Thank you, Mohammed. Martijn, autonomous.
Yeah, I think
food security.
As Mohammed, it's digitalization is nothing new. It's here since the early 80s, I think. So we've got a very broad array of already proven typical. I think I want to highlight, I think, two that really show benefit for the port community and the users of the port and the connection to new users and new shippers and forwarders. So I think it's the combination of data which enables new insights and efficiency. So a couple of, so I think 4 years ago already, we started the Rotterdam Logistics Lab, really from a lab environment, put it outside the company, and they came back with a couple of great ideas. And one of them now evolved into our port call optimization project, or well, it's not easy. It's really a full-fledged program here in Rotterdam, active already, together with Shell, Joe, in Houston again, and here in Rotterdam, working also together with Maersk there. But what we've done there is basically got agreements on the standard definitions of data that are used in a port call. So ETA, ETD, vessel, pilot on board, all those kind of things that are data points when a vessel comes to the port of Rotterdam. And we put it onto a platform where it was shared and visualized. And that was a natural role for the port of Rotterdam as the neutral manager of the port to host that platform, so the users could all share the data and benefit from the data that was shared. There's a whole lot of it on our website, but in really simple words, it's a platform where the port community shares their data on a vessel, on a port call, and others can see it. So you can now align all timestamps that are within a port call. A small example, it used to happen, and I kid you not, that a ship was ready to sail here, fully loaded with containers. And then the captain said, yes, we want to leave to Hamburg now because the tide is good. And then the vessel said, yeah, excuse me, but the guy bunkering is only coming in 3 hours and that will take another 12 hours. Basically because the bunker guy didn't know when he was due. and he had another operation before that. So by aligning all those steps, we improved about 20% on efficiency on a port call, the stay in the port for a vessel. These are the high numbers, but those are massive numbers if you talk the 20,000 TEU ships. So I think that's one of the big examples. Another part where we really work on visibility for the users of the port is that we are now setting up Route Scanner, which is a sort of Google Maps for your container tracking along the world, so you can plan your routes and see lead times. And we're going to link that to our port community system and cargo tracker, which is our Rotterdam and hinterland platform where you can track your containers. So really get all your touch points from unloading at the terminals to get pick up for delivery. It got the green ticks from the customs, and then you can track your container on different points all the way into the inland terminals into Germany and Switzerland, which gives in the end the small SMEs of this world all of a sudden visibility on where their container is. Is it released? Yes or no? Is it on time? Yes or no? Do I need to ship from switch from barge to rail, for example, to still make my deadline? Yeah, and if you then have production lines behind it, those are massive gains. Just basically by agreeing with each other, what data do we need to share, what value is in it for you, what it's in it for me, and build an ecosystem and not try to defend our own piece of the pie and live on in transparency, but by making the world transparent, everybody can benefit. And that's, I think, well, we'll talk about it later, but that's, I think, the biggest challenge in the industry.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, some great examples there from both organizations. Thank you. So Marloes, I guess you're sort of sitting one step back, perhaps. From that perspective, what do you see as the major opportunities and challenges around digitalization of logistics?
Well, I'm working together with Martijn on building an electronic bill of lading, and we're using blockchain technologies for this. And of course, you don't need only blockchain technologies for digitization, but I think it can be helpful for change solutions, and change solutions always takes a lot of time. And in this specific case, we also have to deal with legislation that's no longer in line with the current state of digitization. So in the Netherlands, for example, we have to change the law, and it takes a lot of time to change this law together with the Ministry of Justice and the Ministry of Infrastructure. So I think one of the biggest hurdle of this moment is that legislation is not always up to date at this moment. However, I do think that COVID is really helpful here, so that it's helpful that everybody feels the urgency to change this faster than before. And Martijn can probably provide some examples of the problems they faced during COVID and why this digitization is so much needed. And why another struggle is that you really have to work together, and you must be willing to work together. So in order to innovate change processes, you need to trust each other, and you must be willing to build new solutions together, and that takes a lot of time, of course, as well. And I think it's a great example, the project between the Port of Singapore and Port of Rotterdam on this electronic bill of lading. What I see there is that because they trust each other and because they're willing to work together, they can build new standards for the whole supply chain, but it's not easy. It's not an easy process. So collaboration takes time, and new legislation takes a lot of time. So that's the main struggles I see, but also the main possibilities for innovation in logistics.
Two sides of the same coin. Yeah.
Exactly.
Mohammed, the view from Dubai, challenges and opportunities.
I see honestly a lot of challenges and opportunities in the industry, or to digitalize the industry. Let me start with the challenges, and the first challenge will be where my colleague Martin ended his discussion. Luckily, there are serious steps from Port of Rotterdam and DP World to address this challenge, but it is still a gap in general all over the world, as we keep hearing from customers. So the first challenge that I see it is the transparency, where customers are increasing their demands for real-time logistical updates. But unfortunately, the industry is still not ready and far from being able to offer the full transparency they call for. As I mentioned in the beginning, at Jabal Ali, we offer the full visibility to the customers on their vessel operation. The dashboards are live and showing all the operational details. Customers are really appreciating this step. As a first challenge, we see the transparency. The second one, I can say that it is the data security. On one hand, there are a lot of discussions, motivations for opening up the data, doing more remote operations, doing more digitalization. But on the other hand, cyber attacks, data breaches, data privacy is becoming a very hot topic nowadays and the challenge. And I see that the industry is still, again, far from protecting and safeguarding the personal data of its customer and other personal data. Those are the two challenges I see them. On the opportunities, I would say thanks for the emergence of new technologies where digitalization and shipping has been able to experiment and advance. AI technologies, big data analytics, IoTs, drones, and blockchain has really helped the industry to do a lot of tests, and they became as a test bed and allowed for a smarter and more efficient supply chains. Already, we started to see a boom in some of the sectors in the industry, like smart warehousing, which is really a promising sector. And we hope that the same will come to the other sectors in the industry.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Martijn, build there.
Yeah, I think I would be building along these lines. I think the cybersecurity is a must. So that's a separate topic. But for me, the biggest challenge or opportunity, glass half full, glass half empty, if you wish, is trust and transparency. And that is and technology is enabling that in a faster way than we can imagine. And by new incumbents in the market. So we should be very aware of that and be open to those, because if you stick to what you've done always and build your linear supply chains with partners, or extend your upstream, downstream, integrate them for your own and try to protect your own line of business, the world is so fast, so complicated, so interconnected that that's not sustainable anymore. And mind you, and I'm with no offense to anybody in the audience or anybody here of my fellow panelists, but the industry has been making its money based on intransparency and the lack of trust for the past hundreds of years. And that's not something we're going to change in 1 week. But technology is enabling it, and it will happen. And if we're not doing it as industry leaders and within the industry, other people will do it for us. And then we'll be watching and standing along the line, all of a sudden realize that the world has changed. So I see really that we need to be aware of that. It's scary, but it's exciting. And like Marloes said, I think building coalition and I truly believe in co-creation. And that starts with, hey, what are you doing? Where are your benefits? Where are my benefits? And stay away from business models and money. Let's just start talking benefits for the end user. And then you can find each other. I'm very happy to hear from Mohammed's part that they have got all the data in place for Jabal Ali. So then reach out, and then here is my reaching out. Let's see how we connect that with the port community system in Rotterdam and start sharing basic data points without anything commercial involved, just to learn from each other. And hey, what can we see earlier than if the container is only in Rotterdam already, and we could have known when it would have left Jabal Ali, for example. And we are talking about it, and we can talk about it for ages, but we need to start doing. And that's, I think, the biggest challenge. There are really bright minds, and we've got big consultants, and we've got smart companies, and we've got all the technology, but if we don't do it, nothing happens. And we only do it by meeting each other, making small steps and small gains. And I'll come to the EBL project later a little bit, Marloes, but that's my biggest, opportunity or challenge, or yeah. And COVID is is maybe a blessing in disguise. I really miss interpersonal contact, because that's where the relations are made and where you can make real steps. But it's also forcing us to rethink how we do business and what is needed to be fast and agile. So yeah, that's it for me.
So I hesitate to invite COVID into our conversation, but
apologies. It's hard to ignore. It's my first day in office in a year, so.
Yeah. Marloes, can you go there? COVID specifically, what has that changed? Challenges and opportunities.
I agree with what Martijn said before, and yeah, it sounds crazy, but we are actually having a good time. It has never been easier to get funding and approval for digitization projects. So yeah, for coalitions like the Dutch Blockchain Coalition or the AI Coalition, yeah, it's really helpful. But also, Martijn mentioned we have to make we should start doing and to start new projects during COVID. That's actually difficult because we can't meet each other in a physical way, and so it's a blessing. But it's also a struggle.
The business is so demanding now that takes up all the attention, and rightfully so, because we need to keep the world moving. So and business open. So that's also a fact.
Exactly. So it's difficult to start new innovation projects, but on the other hand, it's easier to receive the attention and the funding for these kinds of projects.
Okay, that's positive. Yeah, and Mohammed, in your area, COVID?
I think at DP World we have remained resilient through the pandemic across our local and global assets. Thanks to our sustained investment in technology, it was tough time, but we saw a good recovery in Q3 container volumes, increasing by almost 10%. Today, as we speak in the beginning of 2021, we are perfectly placed to address the needs of our customer and the supply chain sector successfully. The most important lesson from COVID, which is too important for our industry, logistic and supply chain and shipping industry, is to be more elastic to disruptions, to be prepared more for disruptions. But if we talk positive, we can say that there are a lot of opportunities. And for us, nothing has changed, but the crisis has clearly established the technology as the way to address and overcome most of the certainties in the industry. At DP World, honestly, the pandemic has encouraged us to invest more in digitalization and automations. We are trying to enable and run the business with zero human intervention. With the UAE region management forward thinking, we were really lucky to continue the operation during the pandemic and make sure that we are sustaining the nations around us by the goods and medicine and other things.
Absolutely, thank you. Yeah, so Martijn, COVID and a specific sort of area here as well. Kees van der Vleuten, good question, says, we've been talking about electronic bill of lading since the 90s. Is it so hard? Has COVID changed something?
Yes, it has, and for the better, I would say. And yes, it is so hard. I think it's sometimes even called the holy grail of international business or international shipping. And technology-wise, an EBL is not difficult, right? You can either put it in define digital, but you can PDF it, or you can put it in a blockchain, and it's immutable, so that's all fine. DCSA is working on standard Digital Container Shipping Association. There are already live EBLs, right? So that's nothing in that sense. It's already there. The challenge we try to tackle, and that's our role as port authority or port trade facilitator, is not so much defining an EBL solution. We leave that to the market, and they are there. The challenge is how are different governments accepting those. I really like the UAE, the vision of paperless trade, because that sets the mark, and you need to make sure everything is set up for that. In Singapore, they have a similar kind of story. The Netherlands, a little bit less so. Unfortunately, we still here have a law in place that states you need to have a paper bill of lading. So it's in the law. very easy. We can have nice EBL solutions. The moment it's there and you want to do the title transfer because it's a title document, you need to have a paper copy. Well, nowadays, I would say paper is easily forged than digital, definitely with blockchain tech. So that's where we moved into say, hey, can we put up a pilot with Singapore, with MPA, which is the Port Authority in Singapore, on designing a solution where we stay away from what needs to be in an EBL, because that's onto the market, but just transfer all the details from A to B, blockchain based. So it's the tech does it works, and then we show to the world, hey, if we can fix this and this is the standard, and it's adopted by Singapore government, Dutch government, UAE government. We are talking to World Economic Forum. It's a UN CFACT. You need to apply with everybody, but then we can globally accept that you can actually transfer titles from EBLs electronically, and that will be a major breakthrough. The EBL is there, it's the title transfer that's the challenge. And yes, there will always be paper versions along for other countries or other systems where it's still not allowed or whatever, but there needs to be a hybrid version. But we figured, hey, on the biggest trade lane, Asia to Europe, Singapore to Rotterdam, can we come up with a pilot where we stay away from the EBL itself, but really discuss technically blockchain based all the data transfer, and then work together with the Dutch Blockchain Coalition and the government here and in Singapore on making a use case and bring that to the world. And this is how it can be done. And this is where we're now actively going into a live pilot, and are going to extend the same way I said earlier. This is something we do on the trade lane, but it only works if we connect others. So we need to connect UAE, and I'm having discussions with DP World on this already on a different side. From hey, if we've got this, can you join? Because you are moving into paperless trade. You have the same thing. Well, Brexit, very actual topic here in Europe. It might speed up a few things. So there is a huge potential. We're talking about it for ages, and I think now it's sort of becoming the perfect storm, or where the technology is becoming mature enough. With blockchain, you can enhance it with AI. We have a burning platform by COVID, where we saw actually containers not being cleared here in Rotterdam because the paperwork was still on a desk in China because nobody was allowed to enter the factory. And yes, we needed it on paper, right? So you now have the burning platform to change it. So let's make it happen. And then the challenge is COVID has sped it up. It's the same thing, but we still need to work day-to-day business, and businesses are in logistics doing quite well, but a lot of them are struggling as well, and they've got other day-to-day business to attend. So it's a bit of a mix.
Right. That links to a nice specific question actually from Suchit Kapoor. So to Mohammed and Martijn, like to achieve this digitalization, you've got to go up and down the supply chain, but is there a problem that everybody's working it at the same time and just platforms are mushrooming? Or if not, how are you guarding against that?
Mohammed, do you want to go first?
You go first, please.
So yes, and I embrace that. As long as, like I said earlier, we keep an ecosystem state of mind where we are open to each other's developments. So the moment people are starting to develop their own platform with short-term business models, and gaining money and still protecting their own piece of the pie, then in my opinion, it's not going to be sustainable in the end, because the world is going to be transparent anyway. So let's focus on data standards, data definitions, and how can we share them, being it APIs, being it blockchain, whatever tech. And on top of that, companies, being it existing companies or new incumbents and platforms, build smart solutions, and then the market will decide which one is there to stay or not. But we should not compete on data standards and data sharing. That should be the common goal of everybody involved in supply chain. Data it can be of value, but it's different value for each and everybody. And as long as we recognize that and are working together on sharing the data that can be shared, then that's the first step. So yes, platforms are mushrooming. We're talking to a lot of them. We miss some. We work together with some. And like I said, we just try to do stuff and fail as many times as we can. And by failing, we learn.
Right.
Yeah, I think Joe, I agree totally agree with Martin. Yes, there are a lot of platforms on one part of the world, and the other part is not hearing about them. Yes, there are many initiatives. Yes, people are still protective about sharing data and so on. But I think we try as a global company, as DP World, to leverage our existence all over the world in 150 operational sites to discuss with different entities, partners, logistics, supply chain bodies, governments, and so on, to see what are the best practices that are there globally and try to merge efforts and play a major role to develop this industry.
Yeah, and if you design a local, very successful solution, sure, you implement it, and that's fine, as long as you keep in the back of your mind, how can we facilitate global trade and what's needed to make the world trust each other. Yeah, I know.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. Let's look a bit further forward now. So the sort of most important trends and developments in the coming years, bringing with them business opportunities. Marloes, what's the view of the blockchain coalition there?
Well, I expect that a lot of tokenization and crypto in general, which makes it possible, to set up worldwide trade of digital assets. And also, for example, when you have an electronic bill of lading and you will combine it with tokens, you can also make the payments instantly. So I expect a lot of new examples and a lot of also regulated use of tokenization and cryptocurrencies. And I also expect a lot of new innovations around data sharing. It sounds like you have to share your data actually, but in a lot of use cases, it's about a common administration or you can use an algorithm which goes like a train, and it's using the data which is needed, but you're not actually sharing the data. So I see a lot of innovation happening in the field of privacy preserving technologies, which makes it possible to share data in a privacy friendly and secure way. And I also expect a lot of the combination of technologies. In the Netherlands, we started a lot of pilot projects. It started with a blockchain focus or an AI or an IoT focus. And what we see at this moment is the combination of these communities and the combination of these technologies. So I expect a lot more from this combination.
Okay, thank you. I'd already lost track of tokens, so more to come there. Mohammed, DP World, I guess UAE regionally, what do you see coming that's most interesting?
I think, Joe, the pandemic has sent shockwaves through the global maritime transport industry, but I'm very positive and bullish that the global shipping industry is on the front line of a sustainable recovery. According to UNCTAD, the events of 2020, the pandemic and all the geopolitical events that are happening laid the foundations to transform the industry into a more digitized, more fashionable look and industry. We in DP World will continue to participate and play a major role in developing and connecting the whole industry. And we are investing in many new innovations. One is cargo speed. That will be really a disruption in the industry in UAE and outside UAE. And DP World Cargo Speed is set to provide unmatched service of high priority for on-demand goods at the speed of the flight and closer to the cost of tracking. It will do this by connecting the existing modes of transports, road, rail, and air, in order to expand the freight transportation capacity. So this is one. The second thing that we see that it will change the industry and we are participating on as a DP World is Box Bay. Box Bay is a high bay storage system that aims to change the way the containers are handled in ports with smart innovation. This will be another disruption in the industry. We are starting a trial runs in Terminal 4 here in Jabal Ali to change the way that containers are stacked, handled, delivered, and it will be a breakthrough for the industry.
Okay, excellent, thank you. And maritime.
Joe,
Sorry,
before Martijn, if you allow me to conclude this question, there was a very important sentence that digital transformation is no longer an option. It was not an option for DP World, but talking about the whole industry, it's no more an option. It should be the way forward for the future.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, and I think I'm nicely in the middle of Dutch Blockchain Coalition on the facilitation part, and DP World on the as an operating company on the doing stuff, and I think the port nicely fits in the middle where we try to facilitate that. And for me, like I already said, we now have the perfect storm, the burning platform, where you see really interesting technologies coming to a mature level, blockchain, 5G, all the IoT things, the speed of computing is going up, costs are going down, and coming 5 years we'll see a major effect of combination of those technologies, bringing transparency and trust into the chain. And it's not a matter if it's happening faster than we think. And like I said, to me it's about facilitating that, trying to make everybody benefit, and then enable a platform play for all current and new users to do their business as broad as that. And it's very interesting because we make plans for half a year, and the one thing I already know is that next week they're outdated already. So Mohammed already mentioned earlier, we need to be really agile and really be open to change. The only thing we can be sure of is that things are going to change. It's never going the way we envision it to be. And if that's your starting point, then we can achieve great things. If you try to think from your own business model or your own line of business or your own industry, then yeah, you can run a successful business for the coming years, but in the end, it will not be sustainable. Again, no offense to anybody in the audience or here at the table, but I truly believe that. And that's exciting to me.
Absolutely. Maybe if we just run for 1 or 2 more minutes, then conscious of time, we'll close out. But virtual ports, would anybody like to speak a little bit to that? I see a question again from Case there, saying that everybody's looking for end-to-end supply chain visibility. Physical ports are in there, but I
can make a great example of that. So what we are doing, we're building a digital twin of the Port of Rotterdam. So we're modeling the entire port. And we have sensors all over the port, so on boulders, on quay walls, and we can simulate. So we can simulate different weather systems, different depths, different loading schemes, and by that we can, but also the usage of the quay walls, so we can plan our maintenance a lot better, making it more efficient. But we can also predict when a ship can come in or cannot come in, or we can. It's really completely a digital twin operation of the port itself. If we start combining that asset data with the supply chain data of the touch points where the cargo flows, it's massive what you can do. Imagine what it does for insurance cost of ships, for maintenance cost of ships. If you combine it with 3D printing here in the port, where you can start printing on-demand replacement repairs for ships that no longer need to be imported. So it's huge. But digital ports, it adds the 4th dimension of time, in my opinion, and that's an amazing thing, because then all of a sudden you can simulate and predict, and with AI on top of that, it's almost scary on what's possible.
Thank you, Martijn. I think at that point, recognizing the time, it just leaves me to say again, thank you so much for the 3 of you for sharing your time and your expertise and ideas with this very large audience. I've no doubt many appreciative people out there. Mohammed, Martijn, Marloes, and Hans, of course, thank you for the keynote speech, and Stephanie for the introduction. Thank you, everybody, very much, and I wish you an excellent afternoon. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you.
Bye.